Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Tes Zayin of Masechta Pesachim, Daf 16. We will continue our discussion about is the tumah of liquids midoraisa, midorabanan, how deoraisa, how derabanan. It is going to be really predicated on this statement of Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda. Who remembers Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda? Think back to Pirkei Avos. It's rare. We don't very often hear statements from way back when. Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda and Yossi ben Yoezer and Yossi ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim were the first of the zugos described in Pirkei Avos. That's old. That's way before Reb Meir and Reb Yossi and the Tanaim who we usually interact with. I mean, it's even older than Hillel and, first of the Zugas. Anyways, so basically we're going to be talking about Tumas Mashkin. So let us begin on Daf Tes Zayin, Amud Aleph, 5 lines into the page. V'savar Belazar Mashkin is lehu Tumah ba'olam. Does Rabbi Elazar even hold that there is any Tumah by Mashkin at all? Now, remember back to the end of the daf yesterday, we began discussing the sugya of Tumas Mashkin, and we had said, my glasses are a tiny bit dirty, that should do it. Now, we had said that there was a 3-way machlokas, right? 5 Tanaim, 3 opinions. Opinion number 1 was Reb Meir's opinion that Mashkin can become Tameh Mida Oraisa, but they're only Mitame other things Mida Rabbanon. Now, we had said that Rabbi Elazar is on his team. Rabbi Elazar holds the same way. Rabbi Yehuda said that Tumas Mashkin is completely De Oraisa, and then Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon said that it is Mida Oraisa when it comes to Ochel, but it is Mida Rabbanon when it comes to Kalim. Okay? So that was the machlokas when it comes to Tumas Mashkin. Now, we just said that Rabbi Elazar was together with Reb Meir in saying that mashkin, liquids. Now, who remembers what are the 7 liquids? I think Reb Gili, all the way back in Masechta Brachas, helped us out, right? From the acronym, every so often I try to remember it. I usually forget something, but it's Yad, Shochat, Dam. Those are the 7 liquids. Yad being, Vezmir. I'm not even going to try. I can't remember. What's even the Yud? The Yud, Yain. Oh yeah, wine. The Dalet being Dvash. I'm not gonna go into it right now. But so we're talking about Tumas Mashkin. So Rabbi Elazar was together with Reb Meir in saying that they can contract Tumah Mida Oraisa, but in terms of spreading Tumah, that would only be Mida Rabbanon. Now, coming to today's daf, we're saying that according to Rabbi Elazar, actually, mashkin, liquids, cannot become tamei, mida oraisa, whatsoever. Okay. So, v'savar Rabbi Elazar mashkin islu tumah ba'olam. Does Rabbi Elazar really hold that liquids have any sort of tumah? Mida oraisa, v'atanya, but we learn in a brayso, Rabbi Elazar Omer, says Rabbi Elazar, ein tumah l'mashkin kol ikar. Liquids do not have any sort of tumah mida oraisa whatsoever. Teda, and you should know this, Sharei Heyid Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda, because Yossi ben Yoezer, the first of the Zugis, he testified al kamtza dachan, that a certain type of grasshopper was pure, was tahor, val mashkin beis matbechaya dachan, and that the mashkin in the temple butchery was tahor as well. So now, in order for Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda to be able to say that the liquids in the temple butchery were pure, it must be that they are not tamei mide oraisa. Because if they were tamei mide oraisa, how could Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda come and say that they're pure? The only way he can say that they're pure is if their entire tumah in the first place is only midrabanan, and now Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda can say, but in the temple butchery, they were pure. Okay, I feel like I wanted to say something, but I don't remember what it was. Okay, fine. Oh, just that Yossi ben Yoezer Yisreda, like Mamish lived in the Beis Hamikdash during the times of Beis Hamikdash, hardcore. Like he must have lived and died. He must have lived this entire life with the Beis Hamikdash around, which is pretty cool. That's who we're talking about over here. So now, that was our question, right? How, on the one hand, could Rabbi Elazar be saying that, like Rabbi Meir, that mashkin can become tameh mida oraisa, but they only impart tumah to others mida rabbanan? If he's quoting Rabbi Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda, that mashkin are not tameh at all. So anicha l'shmuel da amar dachan milatami tumas acherim aval tumas atzman yesh lo in shapir. So the Gemara says, well, life is good if you say like Shmuel, who says, in explaining Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda, that the liquids in the temple butchery are pure in terms of that they do not disseminate, they do not spread tumah to other things. However, they would be able to contract tumah. Well, okay, so according to Shmuel, life is good, right? Rabbi Elazar is therefore quoting Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda to say that these liquids contract tumah, they just don't spread tumah, which is exactly what he had said, what we had said yesterday, which is that Rabbi Elazar is of the same opinion as Reb Meir. But what about according to Rav, who says that in explaining Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda, he means that there is absolutely no liquids at all in the temple butchery that had tumah. They didn't become tameh, they didn't impart tumah, no tumah whatsoever. Well, if that's the case, and Rabbi Elazar is holding like Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda, well then it sounds like, according to Rabbi Elazar, there is no tumah bichlal for mashkin mida oraisa. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak achada. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, well, you can explain what we said yesterday, that Rabbi Elazar holds like Reb Meir, in that he holds like Reb Meir with regard to one thing, with regard to that liquids only impart tumah to other things midirabanan. Yeah, Rabbi Elazar holds with Reb Meir on that, like Reb Meir on that. However, he disagrees with Reb Meir regarding the fact that Reb Meir says that liquids can contract tumah mida oraisa, whereas Rabbi Elazar says they cannot. V'ha kidvar kamar denefishe. But the Gemara says, yeah, but the problem with that is that we said at the end of the daf yesterday that v'chein hayi Rabbi Elazar omer kidvarav. That Rabbi Elazar said like Reb Meir's words, plural, i.e., everything that Reb Meir said, including the fact that liquids can contract tumah. V'od v'chein katani, and more so, the Bryce had also said v'chein, and similarly. So then, it sounds like Rabbi Elazar is holding exactly like Reb Meir, and over here we're saying that he's not that there's no tumah by mashkin at all. Kasha, okay, yeah, we don't know how to explain what we said at the end of the day yesterday. If you say that Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda, like Rav is saying, says that there's no tumah b'chlal when it comes to mashkin, and Rabbi Elazar is holding like that. Okay. Gufa, we said earlier. Rav Amar said, Rav dachan mamish u'shmuel Amar dachan militame tumas acherim v'al tumas atzman yesh lo'en. So we had said earlier that according to Rav, that Yossi ben Yoezer ish Tzreda is saying that the liquids in the temple butchery were mamish pure. They were mamish pure. They didn't contract tumah. They didn't spread tumah. They didn't contract tumah. They didn't spread tumah. Ushmuel amar dachan militame tumas acherim. Whereas Shmuel says that they're pure in that they do not spread tumah to other things. Aval tumas atzman yesh lo'en. But they would contract tumah themselves. Rav Amar Dachan Mamish, Rav explains Yossi ben Yoezer Ish Tzreda as being that these liquids are completely pure, they don't contract tumah, they don't impart tumah. Kasavar tumas mashkin derabanan, because he's saying that tumas mashkin is completely midirabanan. V'chigaz rabanan b'mashkin de'alma. And when the rabbis enacted this gezerah, or this whatever halacha, that these liquids would be tameh, so that's only by general liquids of mashkin beis mat b'chai lo gazer. But they didn't extend their gezerah to the liquids in the temple butchery. Ushmuel Amar, and Shmuel said, that these liquids do not impart tumah on other things. Aval tumas atzman yesh loin, but they themselves contract tumah. Kasaver, because he holds tumas mashkin atzman de oraisa, that the tumah of liquids themselves, i.e., their own ability to contract tumah, is mida oraisa, the tamei acherim de rabbanon. But in order to impart tumah on other things, that is only dirabanan. V'chigaz dirabanan, and when the rabbanan made the gzeira about liquids imparting tumah on other things, b'mashkin de'alma, that's only in general for liquids. B'mashkin beis mat b'chaya lo gazer. But by the mashkin beis mat b'chaya, but the liquids in the temple butchery, they did not include in their prohibition or in their gzeira. And the rabbi's gezerah was only with regard to imparting tumah on other things, but with regarding tumah itself, can liquids become tameh themselves? And the answer is yes, they can. Mida oraisa, according to Shmuel. Okay. Now, for the rest of the daf, we are really going to be questioning the opinions of Rav and Shmuel. Okay, we're going to ask one question on Shmuel, and the rest of the daf we're basically going to be asking questions on Rav. Big Adol. Omli Rav Huna bar Chinina livrei. So Rav Huna bar Chinina said to his son, Ki ailis l'kamid Rav Papa, when you go to Rav Papa. Now, in my mind, I feel like we had this once before, but I couldn't remember where. If anybody knows where we had another instance of Rav Huna bar Chinina sending his son to Rav Papa and asking him a question, I can't remember where that was. Rami le mi Amr Shmuel dachan militame tumas acherim about tumas atzmin yeshloin. Right. So Rav Huna bar Chinina said to his son that when you go to Rav Papa, ask him the following. I'm going to read that again. Mi Amr Shmuel, did Shmuel really say that these mashkin are tameh, are pure, that the mashkin, that the liquids in the temple butchery are pure, in that they will not impart impurity on other things? But they do have their own tumah, that if something tameh touches them, they will become tameh. But 1 second, we have a pasuk that says that by kodshim, by the meat of korbanis, it says ve'abasar asher yiga b'chol tameh, that meat that touches anything that is tameh, lo ye'achel, cannot be eaten. And therefore, if Shmuel is correct that liquids can contract tumah mida oraisa, well then what do you do with this pasuk? I mean, Shmuel is saying that liquids can contract tumah de oraisa, they just don't impart tumah mida oraisa. But then how do you understand this pasuk? This pasuk says that meat that comes in contact with anything that's tameh cannot be eaten. Included, and therefore, if we're saying that tumah, that these mashkin, that these liquids are tameh mida oraisa, well then they should be included in the anything that this meat might be touching that would make it tameh. Right? Meaning, the pasuk says that this meat that touches anything tameh is not able to be eaten. Now, anything seems to be including anything. And therefore, if we're saying that mashkin can become tameh midoraisa, well then, these mashkin must therefore be included in these things that can impart tumah on kachim meat. And yet, Shmuel is saying that these mashkin do not impart tumah. So like, I don't get it. If they can become tumah, then then they can impart tumah on this meat from this pasuk. Yet he's saying that they cannot. So Amar Rav Shisha Brei Rav Idi Midi Dahava Arvi Bakodesh. So Rav Shisha Brei Rav Idi says, have you ever heard of a Arvi Bakodesh? Right? Remember, we've been talking. It's been coming up the past few days. The concept of pasul, right? When it comes to truma, a shlishi by truma is pasul. It can't impart tumah to other things. It's tameh, but it can't impart tumah to other things. A revi'i by kodshim is pasul. It itself is tameh, but it cannot impart tumah to other things. So we're going to say the same thing about this mashke, that this mashke becomes tameh midoraisa, but it's pasul. It can't actually impart tumah on other things. Maske for Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi asks the kasha, revi'i by kodesh lo ikre tameh. Hi, ikre tameh. Kasha. Rav Ashi says, yeah, but a revi'i by kodesh is not called tameh, it's called pasul. This is called tameh. We're saying that this liquid can contract tumah. And if it's tumah, then it can theoretically impart on other things like this kachim meat, kasha. We don't have an answer for that question on Shmuel. Tashma, now we're going to ask a few kashas on Rav. B'chol mashka asher yishase b'chol kli yitma. Boom. Rav, what you going to do with that? The pasuk says, V'chol mashka asher yishase, that any liquid that is drinkable, b'chol kli, in any vessel, yitma, will become tameh. What does that sound like to you guys? To me, it sounds like you have liquids becoming tameh. What does Rav do with that? Rav says that liquids do not become tameh, midoraisa. So ma yitma hichshir. So Rav is going to answer, when it says yitma, it doesn't mean that it's actually becoming tameh. It means it's being machshir l'kabel tumah. That if these liquids get on other things, then those things are able to become tumah, right? We've seen this concept before, right? Of muchshir l'kabel tumah. That in order for, like if you harvest wheat and then a dead sheretz falls on the wheat is not tameh. In order for the wheat to be able to become tameh in the first place, it would have to have like some rain get on it or something like that. It has to first have water get on it. Once water has gotten on it, it can now contract tumah, even if the water has dried. So what we're saying is that any of these liquids are able to, if they land on something, be machshir that thing l'kabel tumah. So the Gemara says, yeah, but we already know that from the beginning of that very same verse. Right? It says that from any foods that are eaten, asher yavu olav mayim yitma, that water has gotten onto them, they can contract tumah from then and on. So we already know that if these liquids get on other things, they can be machshir them l'kabel tumah. So the Gemara says, yeah, but we need two things. Chad b'tzlushin v'chad b'mechubarin. It needs to teach us that this applies both to liquids that are like in a vessel and liquids that are like water in a stream. Utzricha, we need both the ashma'inan b'tzlushin, because if we only had the pasuk teach us about liquids that are in a vessel, mishum dachshavinu, that's because somebody considered these liquids to be significant enough that they were going to put them in a vessel. Ava mechubarin emalo, but if they were just left in a stream, maybe they're not significant and they should not be machshir other things l'kabel tumah. The itana mechubarin, and if we only taught about water that is like in a stream, mishum dekayim b'duchtayu chashive. Well, because they're in a big stream, that makes them chashuv, significant. Aval tzlushin emalo. But I'll say that if the waters were like in a vessel or something, maybe they're not so significant. Tzriche. Therefore, we need to learn both about the waters that are detached and the waters that are still in the stream. Toshma, common here. Ach maya nuvor mikveh mayim yiyeh tahor. That a stream or a collection of water are tahor, implying that other waters can become tameh. Mayi etar mitumaso. So the Gemara says no. When it says yeh tahor, it doesn't imply that other waters can become tameh. It means that yeh tahor means that if a person who's tameh goes into a ma'ayan or a mikveh, they become tahor, as opposed to if they went into like mayim she'uvin or whatever, they wouldn't become tahor. But again, it's not necessarily a proof that other liquids can become tameh. So now the Gemara asks, Tlushin mi machshirin? If you take davka some water and you put it in a cup, and then you take that water from the cup and you spill it onto some harvested wheat, would it really be machshir, that wheat, likabel tumah? Ve'amar Reb Yossi bar Reb Chanina, mashkin beismat b'chaya, that the liquids in the temple butchery, lo dayan shein dacha, not only are they pure, ela she'ein machshirin, but they're not machshir other things likabel tumah. And in the temple butchery, there was water, there was blood, all sorts of liquids. So, and we see that it's not machshir things likabel tumah. So tirgma al dam. So we could say that Reb Yossi bar Chanina is specifically talking about blood. That blood is not machshir likabel tumah, but the blood of the korbanos would not be machshir likabel tumah, but the water in the temple butchery would. How do we know that the blood of korbanos are not machshir other things likabel tumah? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, ala aretz tishpechenu kamoyim, that on the land you will spill it like water. What does the pasuk say? Lo tochalenu ala aretz tishpechenu kamoyim. Okay, don't eat it. Spill it out on the floor. So what do we say? Dam shenishbach kamoyim machshir. That specifically blood that you spill on the floor is machshir things likabel tumah. Dam she'eno nishbach kamoyim eino machshir. Whereas blood that does not get spilled on the floor like water is not machshir likabel tumah. Meaning, of course, when you slaughter a sacrifice in the temple, so you then collect all the blood in like a vessel. You don't let it just flow, fall on the floor. And therefore, what we're saying is, specifically blood that just you let fall on the floor, that would be machshir things likabel tumah. But blood that you don't let fall on the floor, blood that you receive in a vessel after you slaughter the animal, that is not machshir likabel tumah. Okay, fine. But water would be machshir likabel tumah. Okay. Maskif Rav Shmuel bar Ami. Rav Shmuel bar Ami asked the kasha, Harei dam atamtzis, the nishbach kamoyim ve'eno machshir. What do you do about that? What's a dam atamtzis? So basically, I'm not much of an animal slaughterer, but what I hear is that when you slaughter an animal, so like all the blood starts kind of getting shtickle all over the place. So that blood is what's called dam hanefesh, right? That's the blood that when it gets out of the animal, the animal dies. But there's still blood that is like left out that you can kind of squeeze out of the animal. Now that's not blood that, took out its soul. Its soul was already taken out by the time that you squeeze that stuff out. That's the dam atamtzis. There's blood that you squeeze out. So it's not nishbach, so it's nishbach kamayim. So on the one hand, you spill it on the floor, like it's not important. You don't have to receive that in like a vessel. But ve'eno machshir, yet it's not machshir likabel tumah. So Omer le Reb Zera answers, Rav Shmuel bar Ami, Hanach l'dam atamtzis, don't bring me kashas from dam atamtzis, tafilu b'chulin nami lo machshir, because that's not even machshir likabel tumah by chulin either. The Amarach, where am I? Ta'afilu b'chulin lo machshir, kiblamine Rav Shmuel bar Ami, and Rav Shmuel bar Ami was okay with that answer to Amar Rahman, because the pasuk says, "Chazak, be careful, be strong, levilti achol adam," so that you do not eat blood. Ki adam hu hanefesh, because the blood is the soul. Dam shanefesh yotzabo koridam, specifically blood that the soul leaves its body with is what's called blood. Sheina nefesh yotzabo enu koridam, but blood that doesn't take away the soul of the animal is not called blood, and dam atamtzis therefore is not considered blood, and therefore it's not significant. It's not machshir likabel tumah, and you don't have to catch it in a vessel. It's not significant. Tashma, come in here. Dam shenitma or v'zarko b'shogeg hurtz of mezid lahurtza. So if you have dam of a korban, okay, a fellow He brought a korban, an animal. Now, he slaughtered the animal, it was a korban, and they slaughtered the animal, and then they had the blood, and the blood became tumah. Okay. Vizarko b'shogeg. So if a kohen nonetheless threw the blood on the mizbeach, but by accident, hurtza, well, okay, the kohanim could still eat the korban, no problem. B'mezid lo hurtza. But if they did it on purpose, then they wouldn't be able to eat the animal. No, but what's the kasha? The kasha is that we're talking about blood that became tameh. I thought we said that blood doesn't become tameh according to Rav. So the answer is midarabanan lo kub Yossi ben Yoezer Yisreda. So first of all, it's talking about midarabanan, and it's not like Yossi ben Yoezer Yisreda. Meaning Yossi ben Yoezer Yisreda, according to Rav, says that blood would not become tameh and it would not impart tumah, and that's because it's midarabanan, and we don't apply it bichlal in the Beis Matbechaya, in the temple butchery. But okay, this Tana of this brisa doesn't hold like Yosef ben Yoezer Yisreda. What can I tell you? Tashma, come in here. Amad tzitz meratze. What is the tzitz? What is it a piece for? What's the tzitz? Who could tell me what the tzitz is? Alright, fine. I'll tell you. The tzitz was the thing that the Kohen Gadol wore on his forehead. It was made of gold. Lemaise, I think that we had a Gemara in Shabbos with one of the, we should look it up. Maybe it was on Tesvav or something, but one of the children of Rabbi Yossi went to Rome, I think, and I think he saw the tzitz, and I think it said on it Kodesh LaHashem. But I think the kasha was like, was it above or below, something like that. But yeah, we should look it up. Anyways, so the tzitz was this like gold plate that the Kohen Gadol would wear on his forehead, and it says that as long as the Kohen Gadol was wearing the tzitz, so it was miratze. I don't remember if it's a machlokas actually. If you ask me wearing, yeah, exactly, it's a machlokas in Gemara Sanhedrin. Maybe Daf Yud Gimel. Is that possible? I guess anything's possible. I remember learning that Gemara in Bnei Brak in the year 2006. I was there in Bnei Brak for one Shabbos. We were learning Sanhedrin that year, and I think I was learning that Gemara. Anyways, so, right, this gold-plated thing on his forehead, and it would be miratze for certain things, meaning if certain, like, tumahs and things would happen in the Beis HaMikdash, so the tzitz would make it okay. Now, you wouldn't be able to eat it, right? So let's take a look. Right? So, amad tzitz miratze. So what does the tzitz take care of? So if you have blood, or if you have meat, or you have fats that became tameh, don't worry about it. The tzitz comes to the rescue, and it's still mechaper. It still atones. Bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, whether it became tameh by accident, on purpose, bein b'onis, bein b'ratzon, whether there was nothing you could do about it, whether it was willing. Rashi points out that mezid and ratzon are the same thing, but they're just the opposites of onus and shogeg respectively. Bein b'yachid, bein b'tzibor. So whether it's an individual, a korban of an individual, a public korban. So what's the point though? What do we care about? The fact that we're talking about blood that becomes tameh. I thought Rav said that according to Yosef ben Yoezer Yisreda, the blood does not become tameh. So again, midrabanan udlok Yosef ben Yoezer Yisreda. It's midrabanan, it's not midoraisa, and this Tana doesn't hold like Yosef ben Yoezer Yisreda. What can I tell you? Tashma kamanir v'nosa Aharon es avon hakodashim, that Aharon the Kohen with his tzitz, he would carry the sin of the korbanot. V'chi eza avon hu nosei. What sins of the korbanot are we talking about? Im avon pigul harei kvar ne'amar. If we're talking about pigul, then it already says lo yeratze, that it will not be appeased. Im avon nosar. If we're talking about nosar, now Rashi actually says that pigul and nosar here are actually really both talking about pigul. Harei kvar ne'amar, it already says lo yechashev. It won't be considered significant. So Rashi points out. So I think that it came up yesterday, right? We talked for a second about pigul. There's like two ways that something can become pigul. It's when you have an animal and you have intentions that you're going to eat it, or I think maybe even do certain avodas of it outside either of its proper time or outside of its proper place. So Rashi points out that pigul here is talking about if you have thoughts for this korban being outside of its proper place, and nosar here is talking about outside of its proper time frame. So rather, what are the things that the tzitz sort of takes care of? So tumah. Shehutra michlala b'tzibor. That tumah is something. There's a concept that's called tumah hutra b'tzibor. That tumah, when it comes to the congregation. So, for example, if the majority of all of the kohanim were tameh, so then they would be able. So you can have a kohen who's tameh can offer a korban, because tumah hutra b'tzibor. That tumah is permitted when it's the entire congregation. So since tumah is already, we have a precedent for it being tahor, and you don't even need the tzitz bichlal when it comes to the public interest. So therefore, even when it's private, you can rely on the tzitz, and the tzitz will make the tumah okay. My lab tumah's dam, and mistamo. What are we talking about? The tumah of dam. So what does Rav do with that? Amar Papa lo tumah's kmatzim. Rav Papa says no. You could say it's talking about the tumah of a kometz. A kometz. Who could tell me what a kometz is? A kometz is when it comes to a flour offering, a meal offering. So the kohen takes a fistful. I think it's actually 3 fingers, the three middle fingers. He takes like a fistful, and he takes the flour and puts it on the mizbeach. So that's the stuff that can become tamei according to Rav, in the name of Yossi ben Yoezer Ish Tzreda. Tashmakam, and here it's a pasuk from Chagai. Chagai was testing the Kohanim when they came back for the second temple to see if they still remembered the halachas of tumah. So now maybe we know more than the Kohanim knew in the second temple. Can you imagine? What if you have a fellow and he's got the flesh of a dead sheretz, which of course is an avatuma, and he's got it bichnaf bigdo, he's got it in his garment, v'naga bichnaf el alechem, and then this dead sheretz touches bread, so that bread of course becomes a rishon. The dead sheretz being an avatuma, the bread becoming a rishon l'tumah, v'el nozid, he touches some kind of a stew, which becomes a sheni l'tumah, v'el yayin, and the wine becomes a shlishi l'tumah, v'el shemen, v'el kol maichol hekdesh, and then this wine, which is a shlishi, touches either oil or some kind of other hekdesh. I'm sorry, it touches oil, v'el kol maichol, or any other kind of food. Hayikdash, would that become tameh? V'yanu kohanim vayomu lo, and they said no, it wouldn't, because they were unaware of the halachas of revi'i betuma when it comes to kachim, and they're incorrect. However, v'amar Rav, says Rav about that, ishtabish kahane, that the Kohanim made a mistake, because it was really, there is a concept of revi'i betuma. Fine, but what do we see? So we see along this whole chain of events of tumas, we see that it was touching wine, it was touching oil, and Rav is saying that these things become tameh. So Gemara says that's not a good question, because Rav is explaining Yossi ben Yoezer Ish Tzreda. Yossi ben Yoezer Ish Tzreda was talking about the liquids in the temple butchery, right? That's what we've been talking about the whole time. So the Gemara answers, Midi hu taime elu l'Rav. We're specifically talking about Rav. Rav mashke beit mat b'chaya tani, aval mashke beit mad b'chaya nitame. That Yossi ben Yoezer, Rav was of course explaining Yossi ben Yoezer Ish Tzreda. Yossi ben Yoezer Ish Tzreda was only talking about the mashke beit mat b'chaya, the liquids that are in the temple butchery. That's blood, that's water, but the liquids that go on the mad b'chaya, on the mizbeach, such as oil, such as wine, so those things can become tameh, and those were the liquids that Chagai was testing the Kohanim about. All right, friends, that was Daf Tes Zayin of Masechta Pesachim, Daf 16. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. So, really, I guess the bulk of today's Daf was really a continuation of yesterday's sugya that we ended with about the tumah of mashkin. So, and particularly Rabbi Elazar's opinion, which then gets into Yossi ben Yoezer Ish Tzreda's opinion, which then gets into the Machlokas Rav and Shmuel, which is really the core of today's daf. That yesterday, Rabbi Elazar said that the halacha is that he holds like Reb Meir, which is that liquids can become tameh mida oraisa, but they only impart tumah to other things mida rabbanan. Now today we're seeing that Rabbi Elazar quoted Yossi ben Yoezer Ish Tzreda that in the temple butchery, the liquids were completely pure, which sounds like they don't contract tumah at all. They don't contract tumah midoraisa at all, which is different than what he said yesterday. So Shmuel says, well, no, what Yosef ben Yoezer is saying that they don't impart tumah onto other things in the temple butchery, but they do contract tumah because it's midoraisa, and in that way it would actually be in line with what Rabbi Elazar said yesterday. But Rav, however, says that no. In explaining Rabbi Yosef ben Yoezer, he says that tumah is completely tumah of liquids is completely midorabanan. So midoraisa they do not contract tumah, they do not impart tumah, and therefore he explains that Yosef ben Yoezer is saying that in the temple butchery there was actually no tumah bichlal when it came to mashkins. They didn't contract tumah, they didn't impart tumah. That was that, and that was really the bulk of today's daf. Just at the very end, we then pointed out that this is only in the temple butchery, however, but by the mizbeach. So liquids that go on the mizbeach, like oil and wine, would receive tumah. Okay, very beautiful. Chevra, peace.